All right, welcome everybody. We'll get started with our initial prayer after that beautiful message from Joanna de Angelis. Let's close our eyes. Feel the loving presence of our mentors with us. Dear Mother, Father God, thank you so much for bringing us together today. Thank you for allowing us to have this sacred, blessed place to meet. We thank you for the beauty that surrounds us, for this entire universe immersed in your love and your kindness. Our small blue dot in the ocean of your love. We thank you, God, for creating the earth and for Jesus to granting us his mentorship as we live this life. Have been here many times and hope to be back to continue our progress and help the evolution of the planet. We pray today for all of those in both realms of life who have accepted in different ways the challenges of motherhood, who directly or indirectly are responsible for the return of the spirits to the earth, who are tasked by you to guide them towards becoming a superior spirit. We pray for showers of healing light in the homes of everyone connected to us, to our center, from near and far. We pray that the messengers of light can travel wherever there is need on the earth, including helping those who have their names in the book of prayer. We dedicate this time together to those who have granted us this life on the planet. We ask you, God, for your protection, and with your permission, we begin our studies today. Yes, will be. Good. What a blessed day to be together. Happy Mother's Day to everybody. We are broadcasting to you from Richmond, Virginia. And today we'll be talking about the law of love, of justice, love, and charity. And the law of justice, love, and charity. Let me get here real quick. It is the last law, not for us because we are studying them in a different order, but that's the law, what we call divine series laws, divine law series. So we'll leave the link to the playlist if you want to watch it on YouTube so you can follow along. We eventually cover all of the laws, including the last part of this third part of the Spirit's book, which is moral perfection. Okay, that's what, after we've covered all the laws, we'll talk about moral perfection. Because it's important that if we were to start again today, we'll probably start from the end, right? Many religions have brought to us the concept of justice, love, and charity, but Spiritism actually teaches us where we're going to end. So the end is a world, a divine world, where there is no suffering. There's only superior spirits, where there's only goodness. And when we get there, we can return to the worlds of trials and expiations and regenerations and primitive worlds, even creating worlds to help those new spirits and the ones who are still hardened to progress. So when we start with the end in mind, then we know we can reverse engineer and be like, okay, I am a spirit, I'm immortal. We believe in reincarnation, as we were discussing yesterday beautifully in our volunteer opportunity. If you are in Richmond or around, contact us if you want to volunteer at the assisted living facility. So that's one way to fulfill the law of justice, love, and charity is to be charitable with our time. We don't need anything. We just need to show up and be listening to the needs of others. But we start with the end in mind. And of course, we are celebrating Mother's Day, always thinking about Mother Mary and all the women that followed Jesus while he was on the earth and who still follow today, because Mother Mary still cares for those who have lost themselves in the abyss of desperation and incurred in the era of suicide. Her legions of workers. Who knows? Maybe one day we can be one of them, right? Because we want to be productive. The laws of labor. We have erroneously believed that maybe we're going to go to heaven and sit on a cloud and eat grapes and play harp, which is valid because remember, in the series of André Louise, which we'll start studying probably next year, we will be looking at there are moments of joy, there are moments of being together, but everything has a way of being, and nothing is idle. There will, of course, there are periods of rest because we are still going to need help disconnecting from the body, being protected by superior spirits. But we can't be idle forever, even though we try on the earth. We know when we try, we don't have a purpose. Those are the laws, the divine laws, as brought to us by Kardec. So the law of justice, love, and charity, friends, is divided in 4 parts: justice and natural rights, the right of ownership, theft, charity and love for your neighbor, material and filial love. So it's actually, there's only 2 or 3 questions at the end about maternal and filial love and talks about this relationship between parents and nowadays we have multiple combinations due to scientific advancements. People who may not be born an X chromosomal composition may be able to have also parents, through the charitable contribution of others. And in the future, the uterus will be outside the body because this is a very primal. There will be, we'll be able, both parents will be able to participate in the. That's a revelation by both Chico Xavier and Divaldo in their talks. But that's for the future. But for now, we allow people who could naturally have children to have children. We have parents, same-sex parents, that can have children as well for adoption, surrogacy. That's the word I was looking for. And still can do sometimes a better job than some other ones who can naturally conceive. So we all have kinds of all different types of spirits on the earth. Because the first part of the book is about justice. We talked last week about freedom, and we talked about freedom. What is freedom, right? It's when I have rights to be free, but my right stops when the right of others start. So what is justice for you? What is justice for you? And I'll bring to you Watson question and answer 875. When we say that's a just or that's an injustice, that's a just verdict, or this is, God is not just. Sometimes we think, this is not fair. Not just that I'm going through this. Because we forgot what we did in the past. And we think, we are being punished. Again, erroneously in other lifetimes. And even this one, we've been misled by religious institutions that God is punishment. in a different time in human evolution, maybe we needed a figure that is just like we have laws, if this is the law, you go 55. If you go over, there is a consequence. We call that punishment. Sometimes we need the harsh boundaries because we're still children, right? When you say the child goes for the socket and you're like, no, but the child's like, no, but you're protecting the child from the shock. And that's what God is doing to us, delineating boundaries with the laws, which are in our conscience, so that we can improve. But if we choose to put you can experience an invisible type of modification of the cosmic fluid if you shove your fingers in the socket. What is justice for you? Let's make it a bit more interactive.
Fairness. It's following according to legal processes. It's consequences proportionate to one's actions.
There's some sort of attenuating circumstances to write when you go in the first part of this part. So this part of the book, the third part of this book, so Divine Laws, the first chapter of the third part, Kardec says that, there's good and there's evil. That's the word we use. Meaning, if it's not adhering to the laws, then it's evil. But it's more of ignorance. We ignore the law. There's no neutral. But he also says when we err, God takes into consideration our level of involvement, right? Because if I already know, I'm more culpable than if I don't. So some people are going around the world without knowing. They know there's immortality of the soul. How do they know? They've been there. They've died many times and reincarnated many times. But in this life, we're choosing to not do. That's why we share, not at the same time, but we share, we talk about it, because we want other people to know that they're more than this life. So in the question and answer 875, the spirits tell us that justice consists in respecting the rights of others, which is different from our conceptions of justice. We may be morally, I want to be just so that my rights are respected, and respecting the rights of others. We are free to do what we want, but we can't trample the rights of others. So are we respecting the rights of others? When we are kind, compassionate, benevolent, we're going to see in the end what is actually the charity according to Jesus. But there are rights in this question, and this couple of questions, Kardec and the spirits will tell us there are human laws and there are the natural laws. The natural laws are immutable, and that's why we can read the gospel 2,000 years later, and the truths are the truths. But then there are human laws, and the human laws change. What's appalling to us today, they say on that part, was natural back then. And what is natural to us today will be appalling to ourselves when we return 400 years from now. It would be okay to do certain things before they're not. But they go a little bit more into saying, is justice something that is inside of me or something that I have to acquire? So I'm born simple and ignorant. Of course, I have to acquire certain things. And when I say I'm born simple and ignorant, I mean spirits are created by God, simple and ignorant. I mean, they don't know much. And then we experience in primitive worlds, we come back, we have interchange between two worlds, evolution two worlds explains it. And then we grow, and eventually we get to trials and expiations of regeneration. So, but the spirits will tell us that it's in us. So it's so natural, the sentiment of justice, that you're immediately appalled by the idea of an injustice. When you see something that should not occur, you feel appalled by it. Moral progress definitely inspires this feeling, but does not create it. So what's just for me, I might consider unjust. Others may not be in the same or higher level of, and then less, and they'd be like, oh, it's okay. you know. So there is gradations, but we will naturally, as we evolve, as we get to know of the laws, as we practice them, which is more important, then we will see things differently. And this is so beautiful because if you think about, we talked about human laws and divine laws. When Christ returned to the earth, in his Gospels, the people who study this in depth talks about, let's think about 2,000 years ago, right? We have a different type of society, different customs, different things they do. A rabbi usually has male disciples that follow him. It's unusual for women to mingle with men. We still have certain areas of the earth that retain certain of those characteristics. Not judge, you just, it's an anthropological exam. But then comes Christ, and in the Gospel of Luke, especially, because Luke, according to Paul and Stephen, not only was given by Paul the notes that became the Gospel of Luke, but also he wrote the Acts. In the Gospel of Luke, he brings Mother Mary's perspective on Jesus' life. So there's things in Luke that are not elsewhere, because Paul sent Luke to look for Mary and take the accounts. But in the Gospel of Luke, there's a lot of references to women following a rabbi, which is very unusual, including the ones we know, Magdalene, Joan of Cusa, Suzanne, who were not only helping, but also we know that were supporting financially the ministry. And by reading Paul and Stephen and all those books, we can get in the book Good News, there's plenty of participation of women. So usually Jesus is talking about one thing that appeals to the heart of man, and then he will give the same example, but with something that appeals to the heart of women. Because yes, there was a separation of duties. There's equality of rights, but there are different, depending on the physical composition, I can be equal. But there are certain things I can't do just because I don't have the physical strength to do it that a man could do it for me. It doesn't just. But this sense of justice is innate. So when we go around the world seeing things, especially nowadays, we have access to things that we didn't have 10 years ago. There would be an injustice, someone who did something dumb somewhere. Maybe you know someone in that area, it might be in the newspaper. Now it's immediate because we are asking them to report those things immediately. Nobody's reporting us yesterday doing good works at St. Francis. But if you stub your toe and fall on your face there, God forbid, you might be in the newspaper, volunteer, breaks a bone, something, like this is the kind of things we're asking to be fed because we're constantly looking at the news. But now we have this view to the maladies of the world, which is full of still evil. That's why it's a transition. We're not in the plan of regeneration. Because if you go to the Gospel according to Spiritism and read the definition, that's not where we are. Because we still have people going to places and shooting. There are still domestic violence towards both sexes. There's still child abuse. There's still people hungry. There's still people homeless. If the good reigns, those things don't exist. And that's when we start to be like, why are we still here? And God, they say, the Spirit say in question and answer 873, God has placed the sentiment of justice, in the heart of all human beings. And this is why you often find more stringent notions of justice in simple primitive nations than others that are more educated. So sometimes you need that harsher trials. In more educated and primitive, those are words that turn, like when I was a younger spirit, I was more primitive than I am now. So if you're living on the depths of the Amazon in a tribe that we still have some left, I will live a more primitive, simpler life that doesn't mean that spirit is primitive. It might be the spirit that is higher than us, who can withstand and can bring the whole group up, because they have a knowledge of living with nature that we've forgotten, that we are destroying the planet that way. But what is the first natural right of human beings? And they answer, the right to live. Therefore, no one has the right to take the life of another or anything that may compromise an individual existence. So, no abortion, no death penalty, no euthanasia. Those are things that both sides are fighting over. We don't have the right. Now, we'll talk about death penalty. We can rehabilitate some folks. Right now, unfortunately, our criminal system is a holding place. There are few places that have initiatives of helping. The OAR is one of them. And, the people who go to the prisons and help develop skills. Because if you got someone so dangerous to be removed, if we just hold them for 10 years, they're not rehabilitated. But you have to give them the tools. There are other places on the country, one comes to mind is in New York, that allows the incarcerated people to be acquiring degrees and skills while in prison, for example, in jail. And then when they leave, it's paid by grants, by a university. The professors go inside and teach. Not everybody can do it. You have to have, remember, not everybody can go to the field of music. You have to have merit. You have to have certain behavior. And then the few spots that are available, they compete, and then they leave prison with a degree so they can give back to society. There's less return. And in terms of euthanasia, we have to talk about medical interventions that either prolong or make your life better. We all have benefited from medical interventions. The times of people say, oh, there's no way in this world. It's much, if you want to leave, there's no better day than today. You don't die because your tooth is hurting. There's an abscess of your wisdom tooth. There was no penicillin. People may be able to go and grab it, extract it. No anesthesia either. You're not even biting into something, because to extract the tooth, you have to have your mouth open. Scratch your finger, you cut your finger, get botulinum, and you don't survive. So we have a lot of tools that can help. But also, we have tools to make the transition more pleasant. And that includes the societal norm that aging is okay, that getting old is fine. Then you have to erase every wrinkle, every ache. You just have to make the lives of everybody, and also not retire and go swing on a hammock forever. Because at the peak of you spend 5 decades gaining knowledge, gaining expertise. Now you can give back to the community. Research shows that people who retire and give back have better lives than those who just don't. Because you have to be active. Because if you lose your purpose, of helping, we are made to labor. The laws of labor, the laws of rest. There's rest inside of labor. It's not like, I'm just enjoying. Yes, you can enjoy some and do some better for the community. Because any community on the earth, even in the United States, there's a school next to you whose teachers need your help. If anything, you can buy them supplies, because they buy a lot of supplies out of pocket and they don't make money much to begin with. There is somewhere a food bank, a pantry, something that we can give back even at our old age. And if we can't do it physically, because we don't have the physical skills, that's the beauty of internet. You can tutor people, you can help people. There's a lot of things we can do. So we have to think when we watch people say things about Spiritism doesn't allow. Spiritism allows. Spiritism explains to you have free will. You can choose those things. But there are consequences, and the earlier we reconcile with the enemies, better. Because someone commits abortion, someone take the life of another one, or we take our own lives through euthanasia faster, there are consequences. Because then now you return to that family with that person that you took the life of in their life as your child. And now they live with you until they're 40 because nobody's leaving early anymore. In our time, we left our homes at 18. Now they keep staying. You have to pay for college. Now everything that you took by taking their life, you have to give back with interest. School costs a lot of money. Housing costs a lot of money, and you have to give it back. And you give with love because now they're your children, and you forgot the past to the extent that we forget the past, and you give back with love to that person. And if euthanasia is suicide in a sense. So it's indirect suicide, as in I don't take care of myself, or I use substances, I drink, alcohol is a poison, people use drugs. No, we as a society don't have healthy food for everybody. Those are things that are also infringing on your right to live. So it's thinking about our actions in the context of the whole world. What is the basis of justice according to the natural law? So let's forget what we think, what our society today thinks, or what the Danes think, or what the people in France, in Russia think, because those are human laws that change based on society. The Spirit say, Christ told you, do unto others as you have done to you. A lot of Christ's speech is do this, do that, reconcile. He says some don'ts too. A lot before it was don't. Just think about when you're young. You say don't to the electric shock. But we try to say yes, give choices in others. Do unto others. So if we want to have a harmonious life, we're harmonious. We don't want people to fight with us, we don't fight. We want them to be kind, we take the first step and be kind. When uncertain as to what we should do in regards to others at any given moment, we should ask ourselves what we would want others to do to us under the same circumstances. God would not give us a safer guide than our conscience. So we don't want people to cut us in traffic, we don't cut them. We don't want people to speed and be putting people's lives at jeopardy, we don't speed. Because after all, they don't know we are Christians. They don't know unless you talk to people. But we can lead by example. And that's what Christ did. He was always, you read the book New Lucy, you'll know Jesus in the home. He's always there with the apostles, with the families. There's plenty of women in the circle, which is unusual for the time. Disciples, male and female, they were male. So he broke a lot of traditions. Because he came to bring the kingdom, the law of love for everybody. So he spoke to the Gentiles, he spoke of them, he praised them. Instead of just staying the knowledge for ourselves. And that's what we do here. When we broadcast and we do our lectures in the language of the country we are at, we are being charitable. But what is charity according to Jesus? What is the true meaning of the word charity as used by Jesus? What do you think it is? Can I borrow the book? It's small. If Jesus materialized here today, and you ask him, what master, after the shock passed, and you have time, you ask him, what is charity?
I think it's give with your heart, the one you give, and you don't expect nothing to exchange, you just do it because it's like it's love. You feel the right to, it's the right way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Love thy neighbor.
Huh?
Love thy neighbor.
Yes, it's just that.
And as we're going to see, it's more, there's a whole, this question, we answer 886, and the answer is on this version that I wrote from Edison of America, or I published this one. It says, benevolence for everyone, indulgence towards imperfections of others, and forgiveness of offense. So you want to be benevolent, well-meaning, kind. Bene, good, right? And indulgence is to grant is to be tolerant. It's not indulgent as we think, I'm indulge in chocolate, ice cream, whatever. It's tolerance. So in this version, the New English translation by Lucas, the publisher of Lucas, it says, benevolence to everyone with tolerance for the imperfections of others and forgiveness of offense. And then Kardec comes with 2 paragraphs talks about Jesus couldn't have thought about charity as his almsgiving. Does it make sense to you when I say that? I'm paraphrasing. It cannot be just almsgiving, because you can just give alms here. It's different from giving the money, because we should provide for the material welfare of others that are not our kind. Because it's really difficult to be begging. Have you ever tried to ask for help? Imagine begging for food. It's a different level of humiliation, right? Humility. So we need to look around and look for opportunities to help. But there's ways you can ask their name. You can ask, how do you get here? Just a word. Sometimes people just feel lonely and invisible. But in this part, he says there's more than almsgiving. Because he didn't have anything, right? He didn't come as a king, as we think of. He didn't have coronation and crowns and the crowns, and people flocked to the coronation, spend money to see it. He came as one of us. He chose 12 like us. He was perfect, but we're like the apostles. Go read in the New Lucy how they bicker, they have differences, they want to see who's going to lead. I went in my way. Peter was strong and couldn't understand, but then over time became the rock that led the men of the way. He didn't have much to give, so he was always doing, but he was still charitable, because all his time you never heard, oh, Jesus went to the Maldives, took a boat. He rested, he spent time in nature, he slept, he prayed. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to take 3 months off. Life is hard, I'm going to sip a margarita at the beach. Even if you look in the book Good News, there are a couple of chapters where Roberto de Campos described Jesus as a child. There was no paragraph that says, let's go to the park every weekend. He was a child, he was ahead of his time, he was teaching others, he would help people, because there was a lot of people traveling. And part of the culture of the time that you had to receive the traveler and the foreigner and treat them well, open your house. Mary would find him at the side of the road where people would travel, consoling their hearts. We don't teach those things anymore. It's more about activity. But he had that in him, that example, and he was cousins of the Baptist. So Isabel and Mary, or there's a chapter in the book Good News, Boa Nova, back to the campus, that talks about the mother sharing their impressions and how Mary was like, oh, he's different. There's something different about him. And later in the book, there is a chapter about her describing how she felt when he was born and the fear she had, because she's a human, prepared and blessed as she was. We all humans probably came from a different plane to be prepared to receive in her own body the Christ. But also how she suffered when he was taken, and how she consoled those who came to look for her when she was living with John, the evangelist, after Jesus. So that's the type of spirits are around him. Love and charity complement the love of justice, since loving your neighbor is to do to them all the good in our power and all that we would wish to have done to ourselves. So it's do to others what you want back. It's not just don't do it. Don't do the harm because you don't want the harm back. It's do the good to them. There's a small difference there. Because Jesus could have said, don't kill, don't, it's already on the law, the 10 Commandments, don't commit adultery, don't do this, don't do that. And at that time on the earth, and this time on the earth, some of us still need that. Don't speed ticket. Don't be rude. Jesus says, no, be kind. It's positive. Be nice. Be indulgent. Be forgiving. This is the meaning behind Jesus' words. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Question 886. And because the love of justice, love, and charity, we talked about justice, respecting the right of others. Charity, being benevolent, indulgent, tolerant, and forgetful of other offenses. And we'll finish back home with a comment from St. Vincent de Paul on this, on what love is, the love part of the chapter.
Can you read here?
Love one another. Here is the whole law, the divine law through which God governs the world. Love is the law of attraction for living and sentient beings, as much as attraction is the law of love for inorganic matter. Never forget that a spirit, whatever his degree of development or his standing as incarnate or discarnate, is always placed between a superior spirit who guides and perfects him and an inferior one, toward whom he ought to fulfill the same duties. Be therefore charitable, but be imbued not with the type of charity that forces you to take from your purse a coin that you coldly toss to the one who dares to beg from you. Instead, go out to assist the poor that hide from plain view. Be indulgent of the faults of those around you, and rather than despising their ignorance and perversion, educate and reform them. Be gentle and benevolent towards all those who are not as advanced as you, including the lowliest beings of creation, and you will have obeyed the law of God. By St. Vincent de Paul.
There's nothing else I can say. But it's very important that we do to others what we would like done unto us. Any comments or questions before we go through our music and prayer? Because the music today is beautiful. The talent is there. The spirits are here helping us, because we're going to dedicate this part to Mother Mary. Because she is here as the great spirit that she is, caring for all of us in one way or another, sending her messages to us in this beautiful Mother's Day celebration that some parts of the world are taking up.
Por Ave, Ave Dominus, Dominus tecum, benedicta tui mulieribus, et benedictus fructis ventris, ventris tui, Jesus. Ave Maria. Ave Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, ora pro nobis, ora pro nobis peccatoribus. Nun et in hora mortis, nostre, in hora mortis nostre, in hora mortis nostre. Ave Maria.
I have a question. Everything we I sing, it's from Catholic Church. It's a very first one after. Thank you.
Dear Lord, mentors, spirit guides, thank you for the blessings we receive today and every day. Thank you for the opportunities, the challenges. Please give us strength and persistence as we embrace our trials. As we overcome them, we will learn and grow. Please help us act charitably and understanding of others as we support them in their trials. Please help us reach out to our neighbors. Please help us practice charity and brotherhood throughout the day, throughout the week. Please bless the mothers on this Mother's Day. Please bless the sick, the needy, and the homeless. And may all incarnates and discarnates feel God's love today. So be it.
Wow, what a beautiful way to continue our day today. Thank you so much, Jose, for playing. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. And God willing, we'll be back next week.